Tuesday, February 17th. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we talk about all those old sim games.
Sim your mom. Let's do this.
Yeah, we were actually up in Albany this past weekend. It's been a while since we've left the Geek House.
Yeah. Albany, it's colder. There's less people there. It's farther away from civilization.
Well, there's more people there than there are in Beacon.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about just, more general geography.
Uh-huh.
Not specific geography. I mean, there's more people in Albany than there is in our backyard. You gotta compare the same radius.
I don't know how it's really relevant, though, because you spent your whole time inside.
Yeah, that's correct. Well, we went outside a little bit.
A little. Pretty much, we just got the crew together to celebrate one of our elders' birthdays.
Yeah.
We got him an Xbox and played a little bit of Mouse Guard.
Yeah, well, we made characters. We didn't play anything.
Well, the thing is, Mouse Guard, like Burning Wheel, character creation is in and of itself a game.
Yeah, we'll probably talk about this more when we actually talk about it. But,
yes.
The Mouse Guard character creation, it's like when you make a character in Burning Wheel, or even if you make a character in D&D, the act of making a character is in and of itself like this fun activity. Like I could just sit there all day burning characters, choosing life paths, right? And Mouse Guard, a good thing they did is they made it more collaborative, so it's actually sort of the beginning of the game is the character making. Everyone sits around and does it. But I think the act of doing it is a little bit less fun than the burninating.
I don't know. It creates a different kind of character.
Bad. Yeah, it does.
Which is important because Mouse Guard kind of really pushes you in a certain direction role-playing wise.
Yeah, well, you have to be, in the Mouse Guard. You can't be like...
You're not going to make a mouse whose, equivalent life paths were born in the gutter, peasant, 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 peasant.
Yeah, it's pretty much you have to be... At some point, join the Mouse Guard is good. Actually, is on the side of the Mouse Guard. You can't.
Of course, that shouldn't be as much of a concern. It's just when we play Burning Wheel, it seems like everybody wants to be the asshole traitor.
Well, you're not going to get in the Mouse Guard for the asshole traitor.
Yeah, but like in Burning Wheel, everyone's the asshole traitor.
I know, right?
Except me. I'm the good guy.
Well, yeah, I could talk more on this based on things that I've learned recently, but I will not because I don't want to drag on and tangent the show too much.
But suffice it to say, we'll be talking about Mouse Guard a lot more in the days to come. Basically, we just have to play it a whole bunch of times first, so
actually playing, not just the character creating part.
So I can jive all the things that Luke and David told me about it with my actual experiences. But I got that interview I got at the Comic-Con. I listened to it again on the train. It was pretty fantastic.
You should give me it.
I'll get it out. I got to edit it together a little bit.
I would just want to hear what it was without the editing.
All right. Maybe I'll put it in experimental feed someday.
Ooh.
Yeah, raw, uncut.
You could also just give me a copy because I'm right here.
Yeah, I could. It's actually right here on the Morants.
Yeah, that would be nice. All right. So let's see what's news. Oh, I know what's news. The Pirate Bay, one of the best websites on to internets. There was big news because they're having trials, right? So basically, the European RAA, Swedish whatever equivalent, right? Basically, all the record labels, took the Pirate Bay to court. Mostly, they took the 3 guys at the head of the Pirate Bay who actually, run it. And one guy who gave them a bunch of money, who's sort of a sympathetic rich guy in Sweden, right? And they're taking that's who the trial is being charged here. And, there was questioning, oh no, is this the end for the Pirate Bay? Even though they've managed to avoid the law, and beat the law and courts up until now for so many years.
Well, due primarily to the way the legal system is over there.
Yes. Will they continue to be awesome and beat the law, or will this be doom for BitTorrents, right? And I was just using Pirate Bay the other day to get legal things. So, if it goes down, that's not good for the world. But, so I was going, oh no. 2 days ago, we were all like, oh no. Is it gonna go good or bad? Oh no. It could,
I was pretty indifferent, to be honest.
not in. I definitely want the Pirate Bays to win, but
I do in many regards, but at the same time, it wouldn't affect me that much if it went away. Partly because something else would
something
take up
else would
the
immediately
slack,
appear.
like before it even
Well,
went
I mean,
down.
that's the thing is that there are plenty of Pirate Bay equivalent sites. The thing is, they all sort of suck. It's like they have bad searches. They have a shit ton of nasty ads, or you can't trust them, or their torrents suck. The Pirate Bay is actually a decent, clean website. Notice how many other torrent sites are there out there that they could go after? Mini Nova, right? Is that still around? Or...
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I just remember, at RIT and kind of the peak of the post-Napster piracy days, I would go to Ware's sites, and it would basically be 99% horrible pornography ads, and every now and then the crack I was looking for.
Yeah,
The right
and usually
kind
if
of
you
crack,
clicked
at
on
least.
that, you had to get like 3 RARs from 3 different sites and click on a bunch of viruses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, I always got them on RIT computers and then copied the clean crack I got at the end from the RIT computer
if
to
you
my
could trust
computer.
the crack was clean.
Well, usually the crack was something along the lines of a CD key.
Yeah, if it was a CD key generator, I would just generate the CD key on another machine, write it down on a piece of paper, bring it, and maybe generate like 3 or 4 just to make sure.
Just in case.
Yeah, then bring them over.
Those were good days.
Yeah. No, but so far, the Pirate Bay went to court for 1 day, right? And in the first day, they came out with the arguments. And I was reading, and they were actually, surprisingly able to make their points in court. And it was sort of I was like, wow, this is a court of commons, almost, it makes our court look like, freaking, I don't know.
A kangaroo court?
Something like that. I was going to say, what's that Wild West show? What's that dude's name?
I can think of 10 Wild West
The
shows.
one with Annie Oakley.
I don't know.
I forget. Oh, I'm so stupid. Oh, God. I'm an idiot. All right. But anyway, yeah, it makes our court look like that. So, and they were basically like, hey, look, we don't actually share any files. There are no illegal things on our server. All we do is have these torrent files, and all our users are doing these things, and we're not filtering, So it's sort of like that DMCA exception argument. It's like, we are not making any publishing decisions. We're just providing this service to any torrent, legal or illegal, and it's not our, bag to say yes or no, right? So they made this great argument in court. So the next day, apparently the lawyers for the record labels, the bad guys were like, oh, but apparently they understood what was just said to them, and they were pretty much like, oh, fuck. These guys don't have any illegal things on their servers anywhere.
Now, couldn't they have looked at the website and figured, well, then again, if they're not text, they might not have been able to figure it out.
Well, that's
but-
just it. They were basically like, look, clearly the other people don't understand the technology here, but apparently now they do, or they do more so, and apparently the judge and whoever also understands, and as a result, they pretty much had to drop half their charges. So, I mean, the Pirate Bay guys could still get a huge fine, and they could still have up to 2 years in prison, but that's the most they could have, assuming they're found guilty of all the remaining charges and get the maximum everything. So far, it's Pirate Bay 2, everyone else -1. And we'll see what the final score is. Hiccups.
Hiccups?
Yeah, we'll see what the final score is pretty soon. But right now, looking good for the Piraten.
So, not along those lines at all. There was this article on Slashdot, and people were kind of overreacting to it, but at the same time, it's one of those things where the concept itself brings up a lot of points. I'm sure you saw it, but the headline was that the European Parliament basically wants to add a, quote, red button for shutting down video games.
What do you mean a red button?
Well, I can read the actual quotation here. Parents should have a, quote, red button, unquote, to disable a game they feel is inappropriate for their child, says EP Internal Market Committee, until Peggy Online is up and running. I don't know what Peggy is. The report proposes fitting consoles, computers, or other game devices with a, quote, red button, unquote, to give parents the chance to disable a game or control access at certain times.
Well, okay, but that's not something that needs to be legislated. All you need to do is just have parents who can go and push the power button.
Well, that's what
or
bothers me.
Pull the plug out of the wall.
That's what's bothers
You don't need legislation for this.
Like I said, that's what bothers me. The fact that, I mean, one, there shouldn't be any legislation about anything like this anyway, because it's ludicrous. But two, the fact that anyone would be an advocate of this, I mean, can't parents... I remember when I was a kid, if my parents didn't want me to play Mario, they wouldn't let me play Mario, and there was nothing I could do about that.
Yeah.
What are these kids today that they can somehow get away with that?
I think whoever this guy is, he should sit down and watch the episode of South Park where, Cartman has all the nannies and then the dog trainer. Right, because he basically, they take the Xbox away from him, he plugs it back in. They take it away, he plugs it, I think that's what he needs there.
But it worries me that this sort of thing is eventually going to actually get legislated through, because video games are still the rock and roll of our era.
Yeah, I mean, you should ask him. He was probably listening to rock and roll. Be like, hey, what would you say if your parents had a button to just turn off your turntable? It's like, well, we don't actually need a button. They could have unplugged it at any time. It's not,
Now, of course, we're completely ignoring all the other factors. Like, I don't know, this is completely technically infeasible. Kids are smarter than their parents. They would just get around it anyway.
Yeah, how is this button supposed to work?
Now, apparently, follow-up articles noted that the red button was a metaphorical construct only, but that doesn't make any sense because, all right, it's a metaphorical concept. Still, how
it
do
already
they expect...
exists. It's called the plug going into the wall.
But I don't
It's called the power button.
I don't understand.
It's called a spanking.
At any point, something like this
Not
could
that
be
I advocate
necessary.
spanking.
I can't imagine
Not that I advocate spanking of children.
I can
I
imagine.
advocate other spankings.
Okay.
If you know what I mean.
I'm curious. Continue.
What do you mean continue?
What kinds of spankings do you advocate, Scott?
The sexy kind. Apparently, if that wasn't, I don't know. I didn't realize I needed
Scott,
to go beyond the innuendo.
What kind of spanking is the sexy kind?
All the kinds that don't involve children.
All the kinds.
Can you think of a spanking that does not involve children that is not sexy?
Yes, I can.
To someone.
I can very much.
It's sexy to somebody.
I point out in Horatio when they catch that traitor for like the second time.
That wasn't a spanking. That was a lashing.
No, that was a spanking.
Was it a paddling?
He put him over his knee, took off the guy's belt, and hit him on the ass with it repeatedly.
Oh,
that was a spanking.
That's a belting.
That's a belting.
No, a spanking involves the hand.
Does it now?
Yes, it does.
Anyway, I guess it was interesting to watch this article primarily because the internet went crazy about it. Rabbling, how could a red button work? It's completely infeasible. All these, all the obvious arguments. But then the counter argument was, you people are idiots. It was just, the red button thing was just metaphorical. But then the response to that is, but still, what do they mean then? Because if it's metaphorical, they're still implying that there should be some sort of legislated way for parents to control their children, that parents should already be able to control their children.
Yeah, you can already, we don't need, not only do we not need a law for this, we don't need anything for this. It already exists. As I said, the power button, the power cord.
Well, it
is.
It kind of does illuminate the deeper issue that there's a lot of talk about. We need to protect children from the internet, and kids need to be, you got to watch them, and they're stalkers and all this stuff. But I guess I don't know. I feel like I should point out that when I got a computer, my parents and the rest of my family basically knew nothing about them. And I had 100% free reign to do whatever I wanted.
Yeah, me too.
I was online unsupervised for most of my childhood, and nothing bad came of it.
No, not really. I think the major problem here is that, is not that, there is a power cord, there is a power button, right? It's that, what was that one of the cartoons with the nerdy guys where the dad couldn't turn the computer off, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Right? We have a situation where, parents still have authority over their children, just, but they don't have, their kids are smarter than they are, so they can't, you in the olden days, right? A parent was smarter than the kid in pretty much everything.
Like the old Bill Cosby, all the bits about how they try to avoid getting hit with the belt, but they'd always get hit with the belt.
Right. Or like, it's like, oh, you try to sneak out of the house. Yeah, well, guess what? I try to sneak out of the house, too. I know everything there is to know about sneaking out of the house, and you get caught every time.
Oh, my God. The Simpsons isn't really funny anymore, but I ended up randomly watching a recent episode, and there was this whole thing where Lisa was going to be bad, and Marge is basically like, yeah, whatever. You can't get out. You're locked in your room. So she's like, heh, and she goes out the window and she starts to climb down the tree and she jumps to the ground into Marge's arms and she says, Bart, 4th grade, you've got a lot to learn, Missy.
Exactly, right? It's like, the thing is, you have parents now. These parents didn't have video games. Well, I guess, younger parents did. We're getting to that time. But the older parents, 40, pluses did not. So their kids are doing things that they don't understand. So the kids are actually able to beat parents at, I guess it's not even the parents' game. It's just they can just beat their parents. And that is why the parents and older people feel they need legislation or technology or something to help them, keep their kids in line, because now their kids are smarter than them. If your kids are smarter than them, how do you keep them in control? They're just, you can't do anything. The same thing happens with teachers.
See, the trick is I wouldn't necessarily say smarter, more that...
Well, not smarter overall,
no,
but...
it's not even intelligence so much, it's just knowledge alone provides power over parents to children these days. Even if the children have they're not smart, they don't have any, really real aptitude for this stuff.
No.
But if they have knowledge, it's like a magic spell that no parent can get around. But then again, no matter how smart the kid is in that regard, the parent can just take away the computer and not let the kid go outside. So...
Yeah, but I mean, usually a parent is too stupid for that kind of thing.
Again, I wouldn't say stupid. I would just say, I don't know, unknowledgeable or timid.
Or, well, maybe, but also, sometimes it's just a little ludicrous. Like, okay, no TV. They push the power button on the TV. So the kid goes, okay. It's like, go to your room, and takes the TV out of the kid's room. Okay. Kid, tunes into TV on his iPhone.
Well, clearly you take away all the kid's stuff and you put him in his room with nothing.
But that's the thing, is you don't even realize that it's, and then the kid's got a hidden Game Gear with a TV tuner. The kids have so much electronic shit.
The Game Gear TV tuner won't work anymore. Today's February 17th.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
That's an end of an era.
No,
right there.
We have to make a digital Game Gear TV tuner.
I know, it's done. The saddest thing is, I desperately wanted one of those. I had a Game Gear, and every day I was like, Mom, can I have the TV tuner? And she's like, no, it's stupid.
A kid had that at summer camp, the best possible place to have it.
Oh my God, that kid must have been a legend.
It was summer, we were watching baseballs in summer camp.
I mean, heroes get remembered.
Baseballs. I mean, this is a place where you don't even have radios, and we had baseball.
But anyway, things of the day. Now, this past weekend, we got, an Xbox 360. And it's interesting because as much into gaming as we all are, this was the first Xbox 360 in the front row crew, basically. It's kind of surprising.
Well, I think Wyatt has one, but we never go to his house.
So, effectively, he does not have one. I have not seen it. I cannot prove it.
Nah.
But yeah, he had an account, so I guess you're right.
Yeah, he has one, trust me.
But we got one. Adam had one. And of course, we got Soul Calibur 4. And we played it. We played it a whole bunch because...
I didn't play it at all.
Well, because you and Nuri had to go home early.
Yeah, well, I had, she had to go home far away, and I had to go to work today.
It worked out for the best because we went and ate.
Yesterday.
We basically went to dinner and got seafood and gluten.
Uh-huh.
So... But we played Soul Calibur 4, and I have two things to say. I kind of want to review that game a little bit in depth later, but one, everyone sucked at it at first because we never really played 3, so we were a whole version behind already. And the timing and a lot of stuff has changed quite a bit, but one by one, at first we're playing, and then suddenly Adam starts kicking all our asses. And then Wyatt starts kicking everyone's asses but Adam. And then I start kicking everyone's asses but Wyatt. As one by one, we all figured out, the gimmick or the trick or the timing for this new game. And I really like Soul Calibur 4. It's a lot better than Soul Calibur 3. And I think if I play it enough, it might supplant Soul Calibur 2 as my favorite fighting game.
No, I can't do that.
You didn't play it. It's pretty good.
It doesn't matter. I know
the only
it's not
problem with
better
it,
than 2.
and the thing is, everyone in the room agreed, it sucks to play a Soul Calibur game without a GameCube controller.
Well, I mean, how much different is it really? I mean, you only really need the stick and 4 buttons.
Yes, you do, but the way the 4 buttons are...
And a diamond like every other controller ever?
Yes, but with the GameCube, because of the way it was structured, it was much more viscerally correct on this kind of low, raw level. It just felt right.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. But
Well, everyone seemed to agree. I mean, half of that was the fact that everyone was used to the GameCube controller.
I think 80% of it was you're used to the GameCube controller.
Not just me, it was everyone.
Well, everyone else is also used to a GameCube controller for Soul Calibur.
Yes, but I think the other half of it, and we were...
Play it with some PS2 Soul Calibur people. Or Xbox Soul Calibur people. They'll say, oh, the GameCube controller is so bad.
Nah, I've heard a lot of people say that they preferred the GameCube controller, even if they had a PS2.
I never heard such a thing.
I think part of it is the difference between the way you use the thumb. You can rock the thumb on the GameCube controller. You have to move the thumb a little bit more and in a different way on the Xbox controller. But anyway.
Are you holding the Xbox controller properly?
Yes. Yes, I am, Scott. Good. You didn't even play it.
I have an Xbox controller, so I know how it goes.
Yeah, well, we'll see you play some Soul Calibur 4. We'll see how you do. But anyway.
I don't want to play. I want to play Soul Calibur 2, which is far superior.
You know what? I kind of disagree. I think you're just stuck in the past and you're nostalgic, and it's a better game.
No, it's not.
But I have two things to say. One, it is a better game, and it is incredibly enjoyable, and it's great.
Nah, I don't think so.
Okay. Mr. hasn't even played it ever.
I don't need to play it.
Okay, I don't know. So you're saying that you formed an opinion on a game you've never played.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. But what was your whole thing? Don't knock it till you tried it?
I don't need to try it.
Why not?
Because I have enough information about it to pass judgment.
What is wrong, Scott, with Soul Calibur 4?
It's not Soul Calibur 2.
Okay. Anyway, the two things I have to say about it are that, one, it's a fantastic game, and we had a lot of fun. But two, Yoda really, really feels fucked up. Like like we're playing fine, and then someone picks Yoda, and it's like, and like no one could deal with it. But that was mitigated a little bit by the first time we played on the Star Wars stage, and that was hilarious. I don't know why, but that was like inexplicably hilarious.
Where is the Star Wars stage?
It's in the bay of the Death Star.
Oh, where the bay where like the Millennium Falcon is kept.
Like you'll see outside Star Destroyers going by and a big space battle going on. And it plays Star Wars music.
God.
It's fantastic. But the problem is you look at Yoda and you just want to cry. It took a while. Every time we played, everyone's like, I swear to God, don't pick Yoda. The first person to pick Yoda
I understand
loses.
why they put Yoda on the 360 and Darth Vader on the PS3, because the PS3 is black and the Xbox 360 is green.
I don't think that was the reason.
That was definitely the reason.
But do you have any evidence for that, Captain Evidence?
That's definitely the reason.
Can you back that up?
It's obvious.
Is there any evidence at all? Any citation? Anything?
Yes.
What? Where? What?
Go look it up on the internet.
I'm sure.
But I think even though as stupid as both of them are to be in that game, I'd rather have Darth Vader, even though I'd rather have a 360 than a PS3.
It doesn't work.
At least Darth Vader's the same height and has a sword. Well, yeah, uses a sword more like how the other Soul Calibur people use their swords.
Yeah, never mind the fact that it doesn't make sense.
Or
Plus,
non-swords.
I am very happy that Siegfried is a good guy again. And not only is he a good guy, he's like a super good guy.
Yeah.
Good
see, that's the thing.
Times 10. You look at him, you're like, if ever there was a paladin, it is that dude right there.
Well, I mean, I played Siegfried in Soul Edge, right? And I've been playing him since. And when he became Nightmare, I was like, all right, I can still change him to the non-Nightmare costume, and he still controls.
Well, the not as Nightmare costume.
Well,
it's
no,
still
you
kind
can
of
have
messed
him
up.
in the non-Nightmare at all costume.
He's still kind of evil and messed up looking.
No, not really.
Yeah,
he's just a dude wearing armor.
Yeah. Anyway, compared to Soul Calibur 4, where he's just like this gleaming silver man.
Yeah.
Kind of sexy.
No.
Yeah.
But, he's still controlled mostly the same way. Guy with a big sword, moves kind of slow, good range, lots of damage, But having him separate from Nightmare again is very nice.
Of course, I have a newfound, rekindled love for Cervantes. I always hated playing as him, but I learned that there's a really cheap combo that is basically dash vertical back up, and it took a while for people to figure out a way around that.
Well, I think a problem we always have is that no one in our group is actually one of those really good fighting game players, and if anyone like that came along, we would just all lose every time and never be able to win. And so as a result, like, our level of fighting game play is like in some difficult to ascertain realm.
Yes, it most definitely is. But here's the main reason why Soul Calibur 4 is better than Soul Calibur 2. In 2, if you button mashed against anyone but an expert, you could win like about a quarter of the time just by kind of button mashing. In 4, if you button mash, you just lose. Like, you can't win. There is no way.
Yeah.
That really makes the game for me. I like it, and I think you're just stuck in the past, old man.
Uh-huh. Meanwhile, you can have your Yoda there, not old man. And
no
I'll
one plays
have
Yoda.
My,
and every time someone played Yoda,
you know what?
me,
You know who no one else plays either? Link. No one plays Link either.
Scott, you know what? Also, I want to point out they added new characters, and Hildy is the motherfucking business.
Don't really care. Who needs any other characters besides the existing
Besides
ones?
Voldo?
Besides Siegfried /
But
Nightmare.
anyway, my thing of the day, even though Soul Calibur 4 is far superior to Soul Calibur 2, is this collection of characters from other video games made in Soul Calibur 4's game, like, character creation thing.
See, that's always funny when people do that shit.
These are so well made. It is amazing.
Well, you already did, but the dancing Voldos,
Dancing Voldo's pretty
the Michael
hot.
Jackson Voldos, right?
But this is better. This is really good.
All right. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
All right. So, let's see. I got like a whole bunch of things of the day. I got to pick one of these. All right. I'll pick this one here. I don't know how long ago, many months, maybe even over a year ago. I don't know. I did a thing of the day. There was a guy named, at least his internet's name was Cicada at the time. He changed his internet's name to Tettix, Tettix, right? And he made some cool chip tunes, basically original music in the style of, 8/16-bit video game music, And I liked his songs a lot, and he gives away all his musics for free on his website. So I was like, hey, check it out. So recently I discovered this guy made some videos on YouTube demonstrating how he makes the music using a software program called Propellerhead's Reason. And
I have Reason. Well, I have a quote-unquote demo of Reason.
Right. I've known about and used Reason in the past. It's, if you know how to use like an actual synthesizers and sequencers and all those sorts of machines to make music, then you'll know how to use Reason, because basically the way the software works is it just gives you, it works just like the physical devices work. It just gives you a virtual interface. So you're just like, 10 synthesizers, and suddenly there's a rack, and 10 synthesizers appear. As if you actually had 10 synthesizers. It's hard to say synthesizers a lot in many times in a row.
I actually used Reason a whole bunch way back at RIT when Katsu and I took that digital music composition class.
Yeah, I mean, when I had it, the demo, I was able to make some bloops and bleeps and such, but I wasn't able to make really good music.
I made some pretty rockin' techno tracks, I must say.
They weren't getting you any DJ jobs.
No, they weren't. But they were pretty rockin' for what I expected I would make.
Yeah. But he's got these videos here, and he shows you how to use Reason, not just to, make music, but specifically how to fake and bake, right, chip tunes. So if you want to, make a Mega Man remix or something, you watch these videos, and you should be well prepared to make your Mega Man remix. In addition, I want to point out, I recently tried out that, if you don't know about this, for the DS, there is a program you can get called Korg DS10 that is basically all the program is a Korg, two Korg synthesizers that are identical, right? And a little drum machine and a mixer and a few other things on a DS cartridge. So you can use your DS just to make music as if you had all this Korg equipment. And not having any musical knowledge, just, sort of knowing the basic functions of these sorts of machines, I don't know any of the advanced functions, I was able to turn this program on, use it for like a little bit, and make some music that sounded kind of okay pretty quickly. I made some drum loops and a little, synth loop, and it was all right. So, if you like to make music, I highly recommend you have a DS, to go get the Korg DS10, whatever it is.
I played with it for 5 minutes, and it was real fun.
Yeah. Essentially, and the main thing I have with synthesizers in general, right, is that I can get a synthesizer and a sequencer, right? And I can turn the knobs on the synthesizer to get cool sounds to come out. And I can be like, ooh, that's a cool sound. Ooh, that's a cool sound, right? What I can't do, and this is what you need to be able to do, right, is you know you've got it when you can imagine a sound in your mind and then turn the knobs to make that sound come out. That's what I need to learn how to do. Go in reverse, you know? I could turn the knobs and hear the sounds.
See, my methodology with real synthesizers or with that was pretty much to sit there, make a sine wave or a square wave or something, and then just mess with it until it sounded cool, and then use that for my riff.
See, I can do that already, but I want to be able to think up a techno song in my head and then push the buttons to make it happen. That's what I want to be able to do, and I'm not anywhere near that point because I don't know what half those knobs do. I don't even know what less than half the knobs do.
So, in 1991...
Well, was it that long ago?
1991.
How old were you? I was 9.
I was...
Also 9.
9-ish.
Yeah, 9.
I was not. Well, I was 9 by the point in 1991 when SimCity was ported to the Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
Oh my God! So it was out. Regular SimCity for the non-Super Nintendo was out before then.
Yeah, long before.
Oh God! When did regular old SimCity come out?
You know what? I have no idea because as much I wasn't really super into PC gaming other than...
Well, didn't it originally come out for the Mac?
The Amiga, I believe.
Really? Was that the first system it was on?
Amiga and the Mac, actually.
So
I don't know anything beyond that.
We
I don't
were
know
less.
the history.
We were less than 9.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, when it comes to SimCity in particular, I was not really a big PC gamer until the Quake 1 era, the Quake 2 era, Mega TF, Team Fortress, all that. And it wasn't really until the SNES started to fade that I became a full-on PC gamer. So I really only played Scorched Earth and Stunts 40 Racing and, Mule and stuff like that. But I never actually played SimCity until it came out on the Super Nintendo.
I played SimCity at my friend's house, I think, for the first time. I must have been in middle school, right? And he had, a Mac, and he had it on the floppy disk, and you put it in. No, I think he actually had an external hard drive, maybe. And it was the original Mac version in black and white, SimCity 1. And it was actually, today the game is not so great, but it was pretty all right back then. But you could do weird stuff like, use only railroads. That was great. You never had traffic problems.
Yeah, there was no reason to use roads unless you wanted those stupid casinos.
Exactly.
What I would do is I'd build a whole bunch of roads in the middle of nowhere, and then I'd bulldoze them after I got my casino.
No, that's a good idea.
Oh, but it was SimCity. I didn't even get it when it came out. I found out about it through Nintendo Power of all things.
I didn't even realize it was on the Super Nintendo until after, but it wasn't one of the release games?
No.
It was a very early release. I remember that. Anyway.
It definitely was not one of the release games, Scott. The Nintendo came out. Oh, no, wait a minute. It wasn't a release game in Japan. And I don't think it was actually a release game in America, but it came out right after.
See, that's what I said. It was one of the earliest releases for the Super Nintendo in the US.
Yes, but the release games, as I recall, were games like Radical Psycho Machine Racing, I think, was out
Wasn't
at that
F-Zero
time.
a release game?
F-Zero was out right away. Pilot Wings.
Mario World, obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah. Anyway.
But I remember as a kid, I wanted this game desperately. I wanted SimCity more than any other game, possibly because I owned almost every other SNES game that was out because there weren't that many yet.
Well, I didn't want it that badly. I think what it was is I played it at my friend's house pretty often, and I sort of felt like if I had it...
Oh, wow. In Japan, the launch games were Super Mario World and F-Zero.
That's it?
That's it.
Wow.
In North America, we also had Pilot Wings. SimCity? Yeah, SimCity. And Gradius 3.
See, I was right.
I didn't realize Gradius 3 came out that early.
I didn't either. Wow, that's pretty crazy.
My I don't know, maybe I'm getting old. It all kind of blurs together before 1995.
Well, put one on the evidence list of Scott's memory better than Rim's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I didn't want SimCity that badly. I played it at my friend's house, and I also, in summer camp, we had Color Max, and we were playing SimCity 2000. I think this must have been in 7th or 8th grade summer camp.
See, in Starbase, which was this local, it masqueraded as a local space camp at the local the Air National Guard base. but it was really half like super space stuff and half, so you want to join the Air Force, don't you? Don't you? Don't you? Don't you?
Lol.
But it had some memorable times. Like, we got to hang out and actually use the military F-16 like fighter jet flight simulator, which was kind of awesome, especially because while the other kids were doing it, I saw the console on the side that lets you. It had 2 buttons of interest. Button 1 was cockpit fire. Button 2 was irrecoverable cockpit fire. All I can say is that button got hit a whole bunch of times before people figured out what I was doing.
So it's possible to have a cockpit fire that's recoverable?
Apparently.
I mean, you're sitting in this thing. I don't imagine there's a lot of room in there, right?
It moved around in like full 6 degrees. It was like Afterburner times 10. It was amazing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but even then, right, the graphics, I mean, in the early 90s or whatever, probably were not even as good as like, the Wii. They were probably all it was all blocky,
You pretty
right?
much got a horizon line.
It looked like virtual racing.
No. It was black and white.
Really? Whoa.
On the screen, you got a horizon line and vectors.
Whoa. So worse than virtual racing?
But it made up for that by having a full F-16 cockpit.
Yeah. Well, not to diss virtual racing. I love virtual racing.
That game is awesome.
Yeah.
No. That's one of the best racing games ever.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, my God. But we didn't even have SimCity, but we played this ghetto, like, sim moonbase game to teach us about moon bases. And let me tell you, that game was broken. I had to make roads on the moon, but there were no cars on the moon. And apparently the roads didn't even do anything.
Wow.
There were a lot of like bad ports and people trying to make like SimCity games that were terrible. And I remember someone ported SimCity to the TI-85, but it basically didn't work and sucked.
That wasn't going to happen. No, so I played SimCity 2000 at summer camp, right? And that's mostly when we were there, you didn't have a lot of time at a computer at once, and your save games, it was a crapshoot if they'd be there the next time or if you'd be sitting at the same computer the next time. So, I mean, it was a summer camp computer lab in the early to mid 90s. It wasn't.
Wow, SimCity 2000, that's highfalutin.
I know, right? So you were lucky if you could play it at all. And pretty much all we did there is we would always type in the code, and the code the code for SimCity 2000 on the Mac was Porn Tips Gazzardo, if anyone remembers that.
See, I went the other way. I did the more complicated thing where you do a bunch of stuff and you type something.
That wasn't on the Mac. That was on the
Windows version.
But
then you get a negative interest bond, and that just gives you money to do all the stuff you want to do.
Well, you would open up the debug menu, and you could do whatever you wanted in there.
You could do that, too.
Yeah. But there was also the DOS code. That was the one we had to like click in all these different places in a specific sequence of some kind and whatever.
But it was weird. I like games like this really like they show to me the progression of myself as a gamer. Nothing really kind of elucidates how far I've come as a gamer in terms of skill and aptitude and what I consider cheating or not, or what I consider fair or not, or what utility I get from a game, than playing games that I played as a child when I'm older and have more reason and experience and knowledge. Because when I first played SimCity, it was kind of like when I first played games like Simon's Quest or Zelda or a lot of games. Not Zelda, but Zelda 2 specifically. I was often very bad at those games, and part of it was because I didn't analyze the games. I kind of just played. Like when I played SimCity, like I knew I would come up with basic strategies like, I don't like pollution, so I'm going to build all my industrial stuff around the outside edge, because then some of the pollution is going to go off the map and it doesn't count. Hooray.
Oh, that's a good thinking.
That was like my first thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have these weird utilities. Like I would go after certain things and I wanted like big blocks of buildings and I had parks everywhere, and I would never like analyze the game and play optimally. So the game in a way was more fun at first because there was a lot of replay value and cities would rise and fail. And I remember one moment in particular where this is when my mother decided that video games were amazingly advanced, was when I was playing and I ran out of money and I was impatient. So I raised taxes to like 20%. And all the people started leaving my city. And I was like, Mom, all the people are leaving my city. And she's like, did you do anything? And I'm like, well, I raised the taxes. And she was like, wow. What's that tell you about the world? And I was like, that I shouldn't raise taxes?
No, I had the same kind of experience. I mean, when I would play SimCity without cheating, right, I would try, there were some strategies I used. Like I knew that, if I put a zone, any square of zoned land that was too far from a road wouldn't develop, right? So what I did is I wanted to make bigger blocks. So what I did is I made bigger blocks of zonage. Like I'd make a residential that's so big that the middle ones wouldn't develop. But then in the middle, I would always put forests or parks or something like that, right? That way, all the residentials would be near parks, but they would also all be near enough to the road to build. And I would just I would always go for something, other than strategies like that, put a police station every so often so that the whole map is covered with police, and put a fire station every so often and those sorts of things, right? Other than that, I went for like what was aesthetically pleasing to me. I like grids, and I liked, I'd have a highway right up the middle and across the other middle. And
highway? You couldn't build a highway in SimCity.
No, I'm talking about SimCity 2000.
Highways were useless, though.
I know, right? But I wanted to be aesthetically. I like seeing that big highway that just go all the way across in a straight line, And
Yep.
I liked having it connect to the neighboring cities, and then I would always customize the map to be perfectly flat, with a flat coastline, so I could build everything completely straight.
Well, the thing
and
is,
then I would put water exactly so I could put the water pumps in a grid and get the most water from the water pumps in the smallest possible space, and it would be just enough water.
Well, that was part of the big problem with SimCity 2000.
Just enough water to give everyone in the whole city water.
The optimal, if you're going to play that way, what you had to do was make a giant pyramid waterfall and cover it with hydro plants.
Oh, you did it that way? See, I just built the fusion plant.
I did that once, and at the top was my mansion.
Nah, I just build 2 fusion plants next to each other, and then that would be it. You could power the whole map.
You couldn't get a fusion plant right away unless you cheated.
Well, eventually you just, you keep going for it and going for it and going for it, and then eventually, right, you get the city to a point where it's profitable, you set it on Cheetah, and since you have a 486 100 megahertz, you just go to bed and wake up and you have $1 bajillion, and then you build 2 fusion plants.
See, I guess part of the problem was that I would play these games, I didn't really analyze them that much, but I would start to fall into the mysticism of gaming in the days before you could easily find answers to the core mathematical questions of how a game works. Like, I would wonder...
Do the launch arcologies really launch?
No, more things like, all right, I have residential, industrial, and commercial. How far apart can they actually be? How much do things need to be connected by roads? Where do I need roads? What do the trains do, specifically? Does it matter where that train is? Because often the train would get stuck somewhere. And, like, if I have 2 discontiguous sets of roads, does that matter? And I wondered about all these things, and I started to figure them out bit by bit. Like, I realized eventually things that really were dumb, like a police station didn't need access to roads. So I would build, like, 9 grids, 3x3 of, like, residential. And in the middle, where road couldn't get there, so I couldn't put a residential, it would never build up. I'd put the police station there or the fire station there to maximize my space usage. And as I went on, I optimized and figured out all the math and everything of the game. And then one day I realized that the game was stupid because I had solved it, and all I was doing was implementing my perfect algorithm. And as long as my city was always profitable, all I had to do was let the game wait until I had enough money to do exactly what I wanted to do. And there was no more game.
It's pretty much the whole game, right? Is that the rules are secret. It's like, if let's say SimCity was a board game, but it was exactly the same game with the exact same rules, right? The only thing is that you did it all by hand with, you figured out your money with a paper and a pencil, right? And such. Then there would be an instruction book, and the instruction book would say, if there is a space of land that is X spaces away from the police station, then its crime will be equal to such and such and such. And the only reason SimCity was challenging at all was because you didn't have that instruction book, because it was kept secret from you. I mean, you knew generally that a police station decreases crime, and, farther away from police stations you get, the more crime there is. That you knew that generally, but you didn't know the specific details of exactly how much crime, exactly what radius. So you didn't know if you were building too many police stations, if they were too close to each other, if they were too far. But if you knew that information, and it was, then the game would be trivially stupid. You would just know, oh, I need to build these many police stations exactly these many spaces apart, and that's the best way to do it at the end.
And I guess the trouble with regular SimCity was that because the game had these rules, but at the same time it was simple, you could solve the rules and then there was no more game. It wasn't even a game of, like, create an interesting equilibrium, because the game was simple enough to where it all kind of petered out.
Yeah, then if you do play the game without cheating and without waiting overnight to get $1 million, then you don't just have the implementation of the algorithm. You also have to sort of transfer between these equilibrium states of equilibrium state, small city, equilibrium state, slightly larger city, equilibrium state, slightly larger city. And if you, in the course of growing the city out, where ended up in a non-equilibrium state, you can get stuck and run out of money and have to pull back and then go out again, or you could screw up everything and it would basically there might not be a way to fix it. And that posed a slight challenge, but still it really comes down to the fact that a lot of the rules were secret.
Yeah, but at least with SimCity 2000, despite the fact that by then I bought a book that explained everything because I was done with that BS and I didn't want to figure it out on my own. But not so much so I could cheat or whatever, but just so I could know the rules of the game going in, and thus I could work on the more interesting things like making aesthetically pleasing cities that worked.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a lot more fun because the game was more complex, so I could make a realistic city. I could make the subdivision I lived in, and it kind of worked.
Yeah, kind of.
Well, actually, where I lived, it worked really well.
The thing is,
I lived in a very SimCity-looking place.
Yeah. The thing is, in SimCity 2000, you always end up with just a screen full of arcologies, and then what?
Well, that's the problem that everyone playing WoW has, too. Eventually, you hit the end game, and the end game of SimCity is you have built a launch arcology. Now, you wait until you have enough money, and you build another launch arcology. And eventually, you have all launch arcologies in a perfect grid, and then 2 fusion plants in the bottom right.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Darkology was more aesthetically pleasing than the launch arcology. It was all black and sort of Death Star.
Oh, you mean the industrial shit living?
No, that was like the second one. I'm talking about the one right under the launch arcology, the cool Blade Runner looking thing.
Oh, yeah.
The Arco. It was like had all sorts of lights all over it. The
I barely
industrial
remember.
one was like the one with the UFO on top of it, right? Or was that the forest one?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. But the Darko was awesome looking.
So I never went for
it
that.
it was yeah, welcome to the evil empire. But the launch arcology was we have a happy glass dome. It looked like a Gundam colony.
Yeah, I kind of ignored those things because at that point the game was no longer interesting. I'd start over.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
the real trouble was that the other way to make the game interesting was to introduce disasters. But in SimCity, they were never fun. They just sucked, and there was no interesting way to combat them.
Yeah.
It basically just delayed your eventual victory or defeat.
Well, in SimCity 2000, there were some fun disaster kind of things.
Well, the fact that you could deal with the Coast Guard and the firemen and the police,
exactly,
you could put them around the rioters.
Yeah, the riots were pretty fun because you'd put the police around the rioters. If you had a riot, and then they would start a fire, so you need to also bring out the firemen. And if you were lucky enough to have the military base, you could deploy the military. They were real helpful if the alien came or something. That was good times.
Well, the trouble I had there was that I would never, I always turned random disasters off because that was never fun.
Right?
But
Yeah.
I would be playing and I'd be doing fine. I have a big city. And then inexplicably, I would suddenly decide to destroy that city. And I would just activate every disaster 5 times and then just let it all fall apart and then turn the game off.
Yeah.
If there's a god, I hope he doesn't play the world the way I played SimCity.
Either that, or I would I'd build a giant city or load up a giant city save game,
and then just let it go.
and then turn on all the disasters and just play the disaster fighting game because the city managing game was done.
Yeah, at that point, you don't want to play the rebuilding game.
Exactly.
But I don't know, SimCity, I feel like a game, now I really enjoy Civ 4, and I think part of it's that the kind of game like that I can enjoy is the game where there's emergent behavior, and I'm directing that emergent behavior to some degree, but not completely. I want to guide a civilization, but I want the interactions in the game to be complex enough to where I can't 100% predict the outcome of what I'm going to do, and I want to see interesting things happen as a result of my small changes. I basically want a complex state machine that relies heavily upon what I do with a kind of, snowball effect in terms of randomness, like strange attractors.
Yeah, that is something, is that in SimCity, you didn't really have a lot of happenings other than the disasters. The news stories really were just either good or bad. You didn't really, there wasn't lots of, strange and interesting things that could occur, and that you couldn't relate them directly to anything you did. It was sort of just like, the news articles would basically be like, complaining about crime, and it was just the crime meter going, up. So you had to build more police stations. There wasn't sort of like this direct thing of like, oh, you bulldoze that thing, and now therefore, there's a riot because of that thing, and the riot is in that area, and you didn't have things going on like that. So it didn't really, there wasn't a lot of, connection between the things you did and then the things that happened.
Yep. Well, like Sim Earth was the worst for that. I mean, I played all these sim games, and Sim Earth was just inexplicable. Like, I had no idea what was going on.
I had no idea how to play that game, and I had no instructions.
I understood the science. Like, you said the atmosphere and the cloud cover and all those things, but what happened on the planet never seemed to have anything to do with what I did to the planet.
Well, I mean, look at the other sim games, like Sim Ant, right? Sim Ant was like this great game, and it was... The thing is, the beginning of that game was so fun. You were this one ant, and you would go and get food, and you'd make more ants, right? You go and get some food and make some more ants.
Sim Ant was fun, except for the fact that, again, nothing you did really mattered.
Well, no, that's the thing, is the things you did early mattered, because you could, at the beginning, if you screwed up, you could fail to, succeed, right? But as soon as you got that one ant colony going really strong, it was pretty much invincible and would do its own thing. So then all you would do is you would send ants to the adjacent square of the map, right? And then you would do the same thing again, only it would take you a lot less time. And now you would have 2 squares of the map under solid control. Once you had 2 squares of the map under solid control, you never needed to control the ants again. All you did was say, yeah, send the flying ants to the next square. You waited, send the flying ants to the next square, wait, and eventually you just clicked on every square until you controlled the entire, backyard and the house. And the thing is, obviously, that wasn't the way the game was intended to be played, because, like, if you actually controlled the ants in the house, it was cool. You'd be, like, crawling on the stove or on the grill or, the kitchen counter and the lawnmower and the dog and all these things going on. But just by, sending, the reproductive ants to the next square, you send enough of them, and you're going to take it over no matter what's going on over there. You never have to look at that stuff. So, obviously, the mechanics of the game sort of defeated the design, and the game was, it's like they had this fun game, but then you didn't actually have to play the fun game.
Yep, and it bothered me because you had all those meters, like,
exactly.
Should you be digging tunnels more, or doing this more, or doing that more?
It's sort of like that Total War Shogun game that people talk about, right? It's like, I remember that game had this cool RTS kind of mode where you'd have, control these armies and formations and things. But when I see people actually play the game, like, they don't actually do that. They do that maybe in the beginning, but then for the rest of the game, they just play on the big map, saying, yeah, attack this next area. Okay, attack this next area. And not actually doing the real-time strategy part. It just does itself. And that's sort of the same thing that happened with Sim Ant, is they had this cool ant-controlling game that you didn't have to actually play once you did it a little bit.
Yep, and Sim Earth, again, just didn't make any sense. And it really, I don't know, it's difficult to strike this balance between a game where you have full control, but then if the game expands at all, you're now micromanaging a bunch of crap you don't care about. Like even Civ 4 gets to that point where I don't want to micromanage all the crap.
Yep.
I don't want to deal with it. I'm done. At least in Civ 4, I could split off the Eastern Greek Empire into the Byzantine Empire, and they'll just be friendly to me.
Well, I think, what you really need to do, in a game like that, and there might be a game that does this, I haven't seen one yet, right, is you want to make bring the game bigger, right? You want to sort of zoom out and then play a different game, right? So something like Civ 4, right, the way you could do this is, I know in Civ 4 you can group units, right? But let's say, for example, in Civ 4, when you get beyond the point of having just a few cities, right, it could zoom out and just be like, okay, forget cities, right? Those 3 cities over there are now a state, and these 3 cities are a state, and you only manage the states. You don't micromanage the cities at all.
Basically, I can sum this up. What Spore should have been but wasn't.
Right, and then, right, instead of building, say, a battleship, you can't just build a battleship anymore. You tell the state to build a naval fleet, and then you control one naval fleet, and you and then if you need to zoom out even more, right, you have the planet or the country, right? And you just click on the other country, and you're still playing a complex game. It's just as the game you're playing grows and grows, and as you get ahead and you have too many small things, just group all the small things up into a bigger thing and zoom out, and now you're playing the same game again, only with different graphics to give you the feeling that you're playing it on a bigger scale.
Yep.
And I don't think anyone's really done that yet.
Because otherwise you have either the super micromanage or the options you choose don't actually make a difference model of Sim Earth.
Basically what it would be like, it's really no different than starting the game over, right? I mean, think about it. You play Civ 4, right? I got one city. I'm playing this game, right? When we zoom out, it's sort of like I'm starting the game over with back to one city because I'm down to one state.
But no, it's more that you start the next game or the next stage of the game, but what you start with and what options you have
depends upon how you beat the first game.
And the color of that depends upon that. Plus, I don't know, I really, more and more, I just like to see the emergent behavior, and I like to see what happens in the rest of the world, even the stuff I wasn't doing anything with. I love nothing more than watching Tokugawa go to war with someone.
Yeah, you don't want to play Dwarf Fortress.
Because Dwarf Fortress, it's so obtuse to watch and control.
Well, see, that's the thing. It has all those things, but it doesn't. The user interface is just so terrible.
Well, also, there's the problem of demystification. Knowing that Dwarf Fortress is actually very simple under the covers, and most of the CPU utilization and all that is caused primarily by poor programming.
Well, it's not about the CPU utilization. It's the fact that, regardless of the fact that it's programmed poorly and the user interface is bad, it does have this emergent behavior going on.
But it's not worth getting to. It's so obtuse, and the controls are so bad, and the interface is so unreasonable.
Yeah, but if someone just took the game and actually put a real interface on it and programmed it properly, that would be it.
Yes, it would. But it's not. It's not anywhere near that.
No, it's not. Not even close.
I wish it could be.
Yeah, it can be.
I mean, for now, I'm stuck. I've got, Sim Earth.
Sim Earth. See, speaking of which, actually one of the better Sim games, at least what I think, is Sim Tower. But
Sim Tower was crap.
You suck. And the thing is, people don't realize, a lot of these other Sim games, I'm not sure which ones are made by Will Wright and which ones weren't. But Sim Tower was actually a Japanese game just called The Tower. And they bought it and brought it to the U.S. and called it Sim Tower. But it's a Japanese game, and they have it on, it's actually really popular in Japan. It's still, there's a DS version of it in Japan called, The Tower and such and such. It's, it's still played over there a lot. And, it wasn't, the best Sim game in the universe. It wasn't like SimCity 2000 good, but I still kind of liked it. The only thing that bothered me was that you sort of had to, build the tower so wide. It was really hard to keep it aesthetically nice. And also, a lot of the game boiled down to elevator management. And it's they had these arbitrary limitations, how many elevators you could have and how you could set them and such. And there was pretty much no way to make a tower with a lot of good stuff in it and also have elevators that were smooth. And traffic free because of those limitations.
Yeah, well, plus, the problems with games like that in general for me now is that when I was younger and I had more free time to just dabble, I could just play, open simulation style games forever, but I don't have that much interest in them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And a game like anytime the way to progress in a game, the only thing preventing me from progressing is letting the game run by itself and build up a bunch of money and then coming back and doing something. That's like playing WoW. I got to just wait before I can do the next thing I want to do.
Well, at least in WoW, right, you can click faster to get more money, right? You can go to a field somewhere and kill rats or whatever you kill in WoW, In
Sim Tower was
Sim Tower, all you can do is wait.
It was basically...
At least today we have faster CPUs. You could put it on cheetah mode and get $1 zillion in 3 seconds.
Sim Tower was just a draw a fun tower game coupled with Progress Quest.
Kinda.
Every time Progress Quest hit a certain level, you came back, you had enough money to do the stuff you wanted to do.
Yeah, but there were some things you sort of had to plan out. If you put certain things too close to each other, they would be in trouble. And it's you had to also sort of planned things out in a certain way. You had to have enough maids for the hotel and have the service elevator for the maids and make sure the maids weren't too close to the actual hotel rooms because then the people there would get mad that the maids are making too much noise.
Too much noise. I think it's how dare the maids be living outside of the servants'
I know.
quarters.
Meanwhile, you go to a real hotel, the maids have a little room on every single floor right there. You can see them and it doesn't bother anybody.
Yeah.
It made no sense whatsoever. It was also cool to some of that game it just made you manage. Like you'd build a movie theater to make money, but you had to keep going into the movie theater and buying new movies to show all the time. So it was sort of like upkeeping all these different little things around, and I don't know. The other thing about that game is that you could build residential like apartments, but it was completely stupid to do so because it was really hard to keep people in them, and they made so much less money than hotels and offices ever did. So I just never built them at all.
No.
There's no reason to.
I can't say, though, that I spent a lot of time playing SimCity 2000 back in the day.
Oh, yeah. Way
Thing
too
is,
much time.
I would often have, like, SimCity 2000 going in one window, and I'd have, like, Civ 2 going in another window, and I would just play one while the other one was in the background on whatever speed it could manage, building up money. So SimCity would be in the background. I'd be playing Civ 2. I'd be listening to music. I'd be chatting on IM. It was like none of those games could ever occupy my sole attention at any time. There was never a point when I could just be playing Civ 2 or just be playing SimCity and be enjoying it because so much of the time was I'd already decided what I wanted to do and now my brain was idle while my hand did it. So I would like do all these things at the same time, and I don't know. The only reason I don't do that more is that now games like that are too complex to do that with, but yet still not complex enough to completely get my attention.
Yeah.
Like Civ 4, I have to pay a lot more attention to. I can only like listen to a podcast and play. I can't also be chatting with people.
I don't know. I just I got SimCity on my iPhone, and it's basically the same thing as SimCity 2000, a little different.
I played a couple of SimCities after SimCity 2000 a little, and the spark never came back.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, is there a 4000? I know there's a 3000.
There was another one. There's probably a whole bunch
It might
of
have just
them.
been called SimCity 4. I don't even know. But I played 3000 for like a little bit, and like I think they added like trash, trucks and things like that. But
Yeah, well, I remember SimCity 2000 added the water, even though the water worked in inexplicable and often stupid ways.
yeah, it didn't make a lot of
And the
sense.
subways that sucked to draw completely and just were a pain in the ass.
I always did the subways, but because I always had a perfect grid, it was easy to do the subways. I would just put, a subway station on every single block corner since the blocks are big, remember? Because I would always put the parks and forests in the middle of the blocks. So the blocks are big. I would put one subway station on like the southeast corner of every intersection. And then I drew this big grid of green subway tunnels under the ground, and that was it.
Yeah, of course, if you're playing the game legit, the subway is so expensive, you can only build tiny bits at a time, and then you have to wait.
Yep. And then you would just build the next one and wait and build the next one. The thing
Yeah.
was, if there was like a big like structure on the corner, I had to bulldoze that whole structure, build the one subway square for the station, and then, the structure would rebuild sort of around it. And it would sometimes prevent, 3x3 or 4x4 structures from being on the corner.
Actually, one thing I remember kind of randomly is that in SimCity, regular SimCity, at least on the SNES, if a fire started somewhere and destroyed like three like parts of a zone, like an airport or anything, after you bulldozed it, you could build something else there before it came back. So you could build like, a 3 block by 3 block residential zone because they were all like just blocks in SimCity. You could then bulldoze like one whole side of it and overlap another residential zone, and then you just get houses there. I don't know what effect that had on the math of the game, but you can do it.
You sure it wasn't like a bug? Or
I'm absolutely sure. I did it all the time.
Well, awesome.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. This kind of petered out. Games like this haven't been able. No one has executed a straight up sim game like this in a manner that can catch my attention nowadays.
Well, I think also part of what it is not just what we said before about, the micromanaging and the complexity, is that the games are really sort of sandboxy. It's like they don't give you so many goals. It's like you play SimCity 2000, your goal is what? Get a bigger city, get more stuff, and not screw up. It's like, it's sort of vague. So you really have to have your own, you have to bring your own motivation, to bring your own thing that you really want. And if you don't have that, if you don't really want anything, if you don't care so much, then it's just not going to work. It's like, but then again, if you do have some motivation of something you want to make, then it is going to work really well. And I think we see that in other games today that have lots of user-generated type content things, like, Little Big Planet or whatever is, it may not be a sim game, right? You're just, making puzzles or whatever, maps and things, but you have this idea of something you want to create, and then you create it. And in SimCity, the SimCity game is you have an idea of a city you want to create, but you can't just create it.
Yeah, you either have to cheat or play this whole game.
You have to cheat, or you have to work within these confines of these rules in order to make the thing you want to make. So it's like if you're playing the game to make something, then you have these rules getting in your way. But if you're playing the game with some other,
well, if you're playing the game to beat the rules and win, then the end result is a map filled with arcologies.
Exactly.
Plus, it always bothered me that elevation, unless you were doing something for aesthetics, only hurt you in SimCity 2000. It never helped you.
Yeah, it's, it was cool that they had, mountains and things like that.
Reticulating splines.
Yeah, because it was like, hey, his sort of real geography, and that was neat. But all it did was make the game frustrating because you couldn't actually build anything on it, and it always just got in the way and made things difficult. It didn't actually... so that's why I would just make a flat map, because it was just freaking annoying to have.
Yep, I'd make a flat map with an ocean or a river.
The thing was, I really wanted to build like bridges or tunnels, but they were always just a pain in the butt.
And they were never optimal compared to the real solution, which was get enough money to bulldoze it all flat.
Exactly.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via audio. Just click the link that says send me an audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.